The observation deck, buzzing with excitement, fell silent as the human cadet entered the battle simulation chamber. The instructors from 5 different species pressed closer to the viewing screen, their various appendages tapping nervously against the glass. "Begin simulation protocol Delta 7, announced Commander Thrix, his scales shimmering with anticipation. "Standard arena configuration. Hostiles set to maximum difficulty." Cadet Dana Turner stood alone in the center of the virtual battlefield, surrounded by towering metal structures and flickering holographic terrain. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, only her standard academy uniform. The simulation's parameters materialized before her: 20 heavily armed enemies, multiple defensive positions, limited ammunition scattered throughout the arena, and a 10-minute time limit. Simulation commencing in 3, 2, 1. The eye go. Moment the countdown ended, Dana sprinted toward the nearest enemy position. Instead of seeking cover or reaching for the weapons scattered around the arena, she did something that left the observers stunned. She began talking. According to Section 4.2 of the Interspecies Combat Treaty, her voice boomed across the simulation space, combatants must cease fire if a formal diplomatic parley is requested. The simulated enemies, programmed with advanced AI and all relevant military protocols, hesitated. Their weapons lowered slightly as the diplomatic subroutine activated. Dana continued, walking confidently toward the largest enemy formation. "I invoke Article 73, Civilian Non-Combatant Status. I am visibly unarmed and pose no immediate threat. Therefore, engaging me would constitute a war crime under galactic military law." The AI struggled to reconcile her statements with its combat programming. 3 enemies lowered their weapons completely. "Furthermore," she called out, pulling a small device from her uniform pocket, not a weapon but a standard communications tablet. "This simulation takes place in what the cosmic navigation charts designate as Neutral Zone 42A. All hostilities in neutral zones are prohibited by the Concordance Peace Accords." More enemies hesitated. Their targeting systems flickered as multiple legal protocols clashed with their combat directives. Dana approached the nearest group of confused warriors, speaking with calm authority. According to Military Manual subsection 12.8, when faced with multiple legal impediments to engagement, combatants must request clarification from their commanding officer. She pointed upward. "Your commanding officer, the simulation AI, cannot override galactic law. I therefore request immediate cessation of hostilities and formal surrender to civilian authority." The first enemy dropped its weapon, then another, and another. In the observation deck, the instructors exchanged bewildered looks. Their tentacles, talons, and various other appendages twitched with uncertainty. "Is she winning by citing legal codes?" whispered Lieutenant Cree, his compound eyes widening. Dana moved systematically through the arena, approaching each group of enemies with the same confident demeanor. To each she cited different but equally valid legal precedents: the Geneva Convention's equivalent, diplomatic immunity protocols, rules of engagement in civilian zones, prisoner of war protections. With exactly 43 seconds remaining on the timer, the last enemy lowered its weapon. Simulation terminated. Objective complete. Time, 1 minute, 57 seconds. The chamber's lights returned to normal as holographic enemies disappeared. Dana stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by discarded weapons. Not a single shot fired. The observation deck erupted in chaos. "This is unprecedented." She exploited legal loopholes. "The simulation wasn't designed for this approach." Commander Thrix raised a scaly hand for silence. Cadet Turner approached the evaluation station. Dana walked calmly to the designated area, her expression neutral. "Explain your strategy," the commander demanded. "Sir, human military doctrine emphasizes thinking outside conventional parameters. The simulation's AI had to process legal constraints alongside combat directives. By invoking legitimate protocols that created computational conflicts, I neutralized the threats without violence." The crystalline instructor chimed in, its voice like wind chimes. "But you circumvented the spirit of the exercise." "Did I?" Dana responded. The objective was to survive and neutralize 20 heavily armed enemies. I accomplished both with 0 casualties and no weapons fire. In real combat, minimizing loss of life while achieving mission objectives is considered optimal. The room fell silent again. Commander Thrix's scales shifted to a deep purple, a sign of deep contemplation among his species. The human raises valid points. In actual warfare, legal and diplomatic channels are legitimate tactical tools. He turned to his fellow instructors. We designed this simulation to test combat prowess. The human demonstrated that superior knowledge of interspecies regulations could be more effective than firepower. The crystalline instructor's harmonics shifted thoughtfully. Perhaps our simulations need to account for non-traditional approaches. Sir, Dana interjected respectfully, with permission, I'd like to note something my instructors taught me in basic training. The best weapon a soldier carries is their mind. Everything else is just equipment. Commander Thrix's scales cycled through several colors before settling on bright gold. Approval. Cadet Turner, your file will reflect exceptional marks for creative problem-solving and tactical innovation. You've given us much to consider regarding our training protocols. As Dana left the chamber, conversations buzzed throughout the observation deck. Different species debated in their various languages about the implications of her victory. In the corridor, she passed a group of senior cadets from various worlds. They paused their conversation to stare. Did you really beat the simulation in under 2 minutes without firing a shot? One asked incredulously. Dana smiled. Actually, I didn't beat the simulation. I made it beat itself by following its own rules. She continued walking, leaving behind a corridor full of thoughtful future soldiers, each beginning to see combat scenarios in an entirely new light. The human approach wasn't about breaking conventions. It was about understanding them well enough to make them work in your favor. And sometimes the most unexpected strategies came from the most unexpected minds.